Welcome back. You're watching the Power Breakfast Show. Now, like we've been saying this morning, it's a very big day for the people of Kericho County and Malindi constituency, and we'll be joining Francis Gashuri, who's in Kericho County, as well as Alex Kubasu in Malindi constituency in a bit for updates. But before we get there, we want to talk about mini polls and the bigger picture. What do today's by-elections mean for 2017? And in studio, we are hosting Mr. Felix Odhiambo. He's a country director for the Electoral Institute of Sustainable Democracy in Africa. Any questions in regards to this topic? 22422 is the SMS line, or you can get us on Twitter. The hashtag is Power Breakfast. For now, I hand you over to Mutegi. Mr. Jao?
Thank you, Kerigo. Mr. Odhiambo, your outfit is quite a mouthful. Electoral Institute of Sustainable Democracy in Africa.
Yes, please.
What is it that the institute does?
Yeah, you're right. It's actually quite a mouthful, but the short form of it is AISA. Yeah, and AISA is a continental organization that works across the continent with regional and sub-regional organizations like the African Union, Pan-African Parliament, East African Community, SADC, and ECOWAS. We primarily work on governance and democracy with special focus on elections. There is hardly any elections in the continent that we haven't worked either as AISA or jointly with the African Union or the sub-regional economic communities, like, for example, the recent, the just concluded Ugandan elections, where we had a mission as AISA, but we were also there with the EAC and the African Union. In Kenya, we work primarily around 4 areas. One is work with the judiciary. There is a committee that was appointed by the Chief Justice in the run-up to the last elections called the Judiciary Committee on Elections.
Yeah, we interviewed that person. The judge came
Judge Maraga.
Yes, he was there last week.
Exactly. We've been working with them, and we are happy to say that we're working with that committee. They've made proposals for election dispute resolutions in Kenya that is currently before Parliament. We also work with political parties. Every time you hear that there's a major retreat involving most of the main political parties, know that in one way or the other we are partnering with them or working with them. We work with elections, mostly with the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Our core mandate, both in the continent and indeed around here, is actually to work with the elections, with the election management bodies. Working with the IEBC, for example, and the Parliamentary Committee on Justice, we've, over the last 2 years, looked at an audit of all the laws in Kenya, including ways in which election sector laws can be strengthened or reformed. And I'm also happy to say that there is currently a bill before Parliament that was tabled by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee 3 weeks ago, that is seeking to amend the Elections Act of 2011 and to strengthen our electoral process in this country. So in a nutshell, that is what we do.
Oh, but you do a lot of election monitoring also, as you said.
We do a lot of, in fact, virtually every elections in the continent. We were in Uganda, before that we were in Tanzania, and we are going back to Zanzibar for the repeat elections in Zanzibar, Zimbabwe, every state in West Africa. There is we have a mission right now in Benin as we speak, and basically
in Benin there are 33 presidential candidates.
Yeah.
Now, the concern about the governance is that when African outfits like the African Union or the East African Community or people like you, they complain that the toughest criticism of our electoral system comes from outside. Europeans, Americans, Swedish, and all those other observers, non-African observers.
Yeah.
Why is that so?
Well, the problem...
why do you hide the fact?
No, we actually don't hide the fact. And the truth of the matter is, every time we deploy a mission as AISA, we are extremely forthright and very candid in our observation and the report that we write. And if you look at the report, for example, that we wrote for the Ugandan elections, we actually stated it for what it was. We were able to point out the many anomalies that happened. We were able to point out issues that surrounded the curtailment of fundamental rights and freedom, including the arrest of Besigye, among others. The truth of the matter is that the intergovernmental bodies, like the EAC, for example, IGAD, and the African Union, given the fact that in most of these elections, the incumbents are actually seeking re-elections. They've not been forthright. They've not been as frank and as candid as possible in their assessment of the elections, and to a larger extent, in my opinion, they actually don't help matters, because every time you couch a malpractice or an election that does not meet the credibility test, you're not strengthening the democratic process in that country. And this is a discussion that we've had with both the EAC and African Union, for example, and we hope that moving forward they'll be able to rectify those processes.
You are reports.
Yeah.
I've never seen the light of day. I've not seen them.
It is there.
Like the one of Uganda.
Yes.
Why did I not see it in television and you screaming and making a lot of noise in the newspapers?
Because most of the time, EAC and say, for example,
we are not an appendage of EAC.
No, we are not.
So why did you not do your own independent observation and call a big press conference in Kampala or Nairobi or wherever?
That's exactly.
And say this is what you have seen.
That's exactly what we did. We had a very serious report. We launched it, I think, on the day of, immediately after the day of the voting, and we were able to condemn and actually were very objective in our assessment and made recommendations that the country needed to do or to embark on within the next 5 years. The problem, though, is that every time, I think it's the conduct of the media, the way the media reports.
Maybe you need a public
absolutely no
maybe
control.
you need a public relations agency to push, push your agenda.
That's an advice that we are willing to take. But the problem is, our reports are usually overshadowed by, for example, if the AU or the EAC gives an assessment of free and fair, then what usually happens is that the press actually take that headline and they scream it, publicize it, and that is what carries the day. So somehow it overshadows our report.
So when you write your report, it's supposed to go to where? And
I'm going to send it to you, by the way. We share it with the Electoral Commission. We share it with, like, for example, we shared it with the Ugandan government. We shared it with political parties. We launch it.
Do you think it would make any change?
We hope so.
Anyway, let's go back home. We have elections today taking place in Malindi and in Kericho.
Yes.
And they are very hot. It looks like even the other day, when there was a few weeks ago, when there was an MCA election in Bomet, it was like a presidential election. There's a lot of money was spent. A lot of money. I've seen helicopters hovering all over. What do you take What your take on that?
I think it confirms one point and one fact that I personally have said time and again, that we are blessed in this country to have very fierce and competitive elections. If you compare that with the rest of the continent, it's actually Ghana that has that kind of highly contested elections. And I'm very happy to say that it's actually Ghana and Kenya that have very seriously and very fiercely contested elections. In itself, it energizes and motivates the public to engage in that electoral process or in the civic process. The beginning with every multi-party election since 1992, we've seen a lot of fierce campaigns, but more so in the post-2013. Every by-election has been fiercely contested, has been very, very seriously contested. And as you pointed out, that award in Kericho. Before that, we had the Kajiado Central by-election, the Mathare by-election that was there. And the point is, our elections are very highly contested. It therefore points to, and I hope that is going to be the situation, that our democracy is actually coming of age. Slowly, by slowly, it's actually coming of age. But it also imposes very serious obligations on every electoral institutions, including the IBC, including political parties, and including the voters, and indeed the police.
But is that good for the country? Don't people, we finished an election from 2013 up to today, we are still campaigning.
That's true.
Is that good for the country, or is it? For you people who do elections, yeah, that's good for you. But for the country, in terms of economic development, in terms of investment, in terms of tourism, is that good?
It is good. I think it is. The alternative would be much worse. And that is seriously the case, except for the last elections in Tanzania, for example. I mean, if you see the dominance that the ANC has in South Africa, we'd rather be a politically sensitized and active citizenry like we are, as opposed to having a situation where there's serious complacency, there's serious lack of interest in the political process. In fact, in the last elections in Tanzania, for example, 2 or 3 months to the elections, you won't even know that there was going to be an election that year. In fact, Kenya, which had its elections coming 3 years down the road, was more actively politically engaged than Tanzania probably was. And I think it's good for the country. It strengthens and tests our democracy. It strengthens and tests our constitutional and legal framework for elections. It constantly position and strengthens the election management bodies and indeed other institutions like the office of the registrar of political parties. So yes, the alternative would be much worse.
You say you also deal with the registrar of political parties, our political parties themselves, where we find one of the biggest problems is the proposed merger by JAP, or JAP or whatever you call them, the Jubilee Party, is fear of other parties. Once they merge, there will be dictatorship. That if they merge and they abolish the other parties, and then there is no democracy at nomination, then they will have nowhere to go. That's why they are saying, no, we won't merge. We want to remain without foot. We want to stay independent, or we can merge after. So, internal democracy in nomination. How do you engage political parties in that, so that there is, in fact, it causes party hopping to the extent that the parties in Kenya are not there at all. The party is the owner of the party, or the leader, or the chairman, or the president.
I think we have to acknowledge that we've had problems in our electoral democracy. But I think it also is fair to acknowledge that progress has been made. And there were so many problems and challenges with the 2013 elections, as were challenges in the other 4 multi-party elections that we had since the country reverted back to the multi-party democracy in 1991. But if you compare 92 elections, 97, 2002, etc., you can almost begin to see a trend that in as much as there are challenges, in as much as we made retrogressive steps, there have actually also been progress, sorry. Now, if you look at 2013 elections, there were so many challenges. Bordering on election management and administration, and that is the conduct of IEBC, bordering on political parties. You remember when they nominated literally all of them nominating on the same day, and every nomination process resulted being very shambolic and indeed very chaotic. There were problems with every institution that you may want to say. There was problems with the voter register, and right now I'm happy that we're in the process of voter registration exercise. But if you look at, the question then is it fair for this country to constantly look back and lament, or can we take these challenges and try to fix them from election management and administration, meaning IEBC, to the institutions of political parties, to looking at the election sector laws? And I've said actually at the beginning that there is a bill currently before Parliament to amend the Elections Act and Political Parties Act. What
change will it bring? Because I anticipate that come nomination next year, there will be the same chaos.
No, I think there will be chaos. I'm one person that will acknowledge that there are problems. If you look at the conduct of political parties, there are problems. But look at even these by-elections. Increasingly, we are ending up in a situation where the situation that is in Ghana, for example, where you have 2 very strong, formidable parties or coalitions. There are serious reorganizations and realignments that will ultimately have a positive impact on our political parties. And I'm not saying that all the other political parties should disband, but I'm saying that there is, say, for example, if you look at even the campaigns that happened, if it was in the 92 period, 97 parliamentary term, the ruling party may have won, say, for example, Kajiado Central. But slowly by slowly, we are getting there. But with regard to your specific questions about the JAP merger, one, we also have to acknowledge that both mergers and coalitions are provided for in the elections. The Political Parties Act, Section 10 for coalitions and Section 11 dealing with the mergers. The problem I think that there may have been is that whereas the Political Parties Act contemplates a bottom-up approach in terms of negotiating the mergers, beginning and that process being ratified by the the National Delegates Congress, the way the JAP parties have actually sought to go about it, and I think that is part of the reason why there's the feeling of lack of inclusion, is that it started from the top and then went down or ramped down going down. So maybe that is where the problem was. But I don't think, I think there has to be an acknowledgement that yes, parties can merge and yes, parties can form coalitions. In any case, both the two leading political parties or coalitions which contested 2013 were actually coalitions.
Do you foresee a situation where, like in Western countries, people will not jump a party after losing? You know, like they happened in Kajiado Central. One person jumped when he was not nominated in one party, or like Lowassa, he jumped party. Or the same thing with in Uganda. There is a guy who was in Museveni's party. He jumped and went to contest against him. Do you see a situation why people remain in parties and not, you know, historical, so that you remain, if you are a Democrat, you are a Democrat, if you are a Republican, you are a Republican?
I think that is the challenge that we've had, that party discipline has been wanting in our political parties, and I think it has everything to do with how multi-party came into being. Remember the original Ford and all the machinations that were put in place to break code and to engineer defections. In 92 and 97 parliamentary political term witnessed the largest number of defections. In 97 and 2002 witnessed a number of defections, but not really in the scope that the first parliamentary term of the multi-party elections, 92 and 97, witnessed. But it's not just in the Western countries only. I mean, the two leading political parties in Ghana, the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party, defections are extremely rare. You will recall, for example, in 2012 elections, when Kenya then opted, I think 2008 elections, when the margin in the
2007, 2008.
Yeah, 2008 in Ghana.
Oh, 2008 in Ghana.
The margin was so small that John Atta Mills and Nana Addo, the difference was only 46,000 votes. There was no defections, there was no grand coalition government. The NPP accepted that loss, and there was absolutely no defection between that term. There are hardly any defection in the ANC. All political parties in South Africa. And so it's a reality that we must accept, that party discipline requires some level of commitment, some level of some fabric that unites you, that make you be a member of that political party. Unfortunately for us, defection has been the in thing, engineered by incentives to an extent that even if you look at party loyalty in the current parliamentary term, there are a number of people who are elected on CORD and Jubilee
who have defected,
who have, for all intents and purposes, defected.
And they're campaigning for the rival.
Yeah, in Kericho and in Malindi. Yeah. So this is really a deficit in so far as the strengthening of our political parties are concerned, and this is something that we really must
in your view, what can be done? Because it looks like parties here, as I said before, they belong to a person.
Yeah.
If it's URP, it's known as Ruto party. If it's TNA, it's Kenyatta's party. Why can't you have institutions where you have a party which is a party, not a name, not even a tribe?
You would hope that with our new and constitutional dispensation, incentives that usually attract people to defect should have ended by the last with the last constitution. With devolution and funding going to the counties, I often wonder when I hear somebody saying that I'm defecting to the ruling party so that I can attract development in my area. I mean, you're getting 6 billion, your county is getting 6 billion per year and every year. This is far better than whatever handouts that you may get from a candidate. And so it's something that you hope may have ended with the last constitution. The other thing that there was, the former Political Parties Act that was repealed actually demanded, as you may recall, that you could not accept any cabinet appointment without the consent of your party.
Yes.
Now the problem is the 2011 Act, the Political Parties Act of 2011 Act, actually removed that particular provision. And so His Excellency the President can appoint a member of opposition party, a member of parliament from an opposition party without making reference to his political party. Maybe we should amend that.
Okay, maybe we take a break now and we go to Raburu so that you can talk to those reporters of ours in the field.
Right, thank you very much. Of course, that conversation continues. If you have any questions, the SMS, question, comment, and views, of course, the SMS number is 22422. That is 22422, and also on Twitter, the hashtag remains. But breakfast now, we want to cross over to Alex Kubasu, who is in Malindi. He's monitoring the by-election there, and just to give us an update of what the situation is. Earlier on, there were reports that the voters had turned out, but then the voting had not started. So maybe Alex, give us an update of what the situation is right now.
Thank you, Willis Raburu from the Communication Center. We are still live here at Barani Secondary School, and as you can see behind me, it is the polling station. There are about 4 in number here at Barani Station that doubles up also as the main tallying center. Once the results start trickling in, it is just a few meters away, and you shall be able to follow the results as they come in. Earlier in the day, bright and early, residents arrived here, registered voters, to be able to decide who their next member of parliament would be, and it has been ongoing smoothly despite the earlier concern about the opening time and the starting time. It was supposed to start at 6 a.m. but it delayed by about 5 to 10 minutes, but that has already been sorted out, and the process is now going on smoothly. From where I stand, there are lines. If my cameraman can be able to give us a shot of the residents as they line up to be able to go and vote, and he'll just be giving us that in a very short while. And the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, as I said earlier, is expecting about 50% voter turnout. That would be good enough for them, given the trends with the ongoing by-elections that have been held since the 2013 general elections, from even the members of county assemblies, in addition to members of parliament and even senators who've been elected during by-elections. And they've confirmed to us that they'll be issuing a statement, just a progress, an hourly or a 2-hourly progress report at about 9 a.m. to tell us so far how are things, what are maybe the incidents or the reports that have been received so far. So far they've said nothing, everything is going according to plan. And earlier yesterday they said they'll be expecting the polling stations to close at least by 6 p.m. latest, and residents of Malindi town would be able also to know their elected leader at least by 8 p.m. today, given the number of registered voters, about 55,000, and even the clerks that have been deployed to be able to do that. And it will be a hastened process, but one that will be very free and fair. Raburu.
Right, thank you very much. That's Alex Kubasu. He's in Malindi. He's monitoring the by-election there, and as he says that finally the election has already gone underway. Has already started, and so there was a slight delay of 10 minutes, like he said, and now they're voting. Of course, Alex Kubasu will stay there and keep us updated. If you want to follow more on this, it's at Citizen TV Kenya as well. Now, of course, we'll be talking to Francis Gachuri a little bit later on also in just the next week, but for now I want to hand it over back to Mutegi Njau before we'll cross over later on to Kericho to Francis Gachuri. So, Mutegi. Thank
you, Raburu. Mr. Odhiambo,
yes.
You have heard the reporter there saying that the turnout is going to be, they expect 50%. Normally, by elections, turnout is not very high. I'm concerned now about the registration of voters, which is for next year. The Electoral Commission is expecting to register about 4 million people. Mm-hmm. The turnout is not even 1 million so far.
Yeah.
And it's only up to 15th, from 15th of February to 15th of March. Why is that so?
That worries me, and to be honest with you, and as somebody that is active actively involved in this working around elections. It is a huge concern for me, and I really, first of all, I think the IEBC should be commended for introducing the so-called periodic voter registration process. In as much as the Elections Act provides for a continuous voter registration process, where you turn 18, you acquire an ID, and then you go and register. This process of periodic voter registration, which is really what the IEBC has done, which essentially works like this: you designate a particular month, open it for registration, publicize it, motivate people to go and register, and then you gazette the total number of registration for that month, and then you update the master register. That is the best way to go about it. But if you, one of the problems in 2012, 2013 elections was the all issues surrounding voter registration. You remember, this is one of the issues that was seriously canvassed during the presidential petition. And I think if you consider what IEBC did, the voter registration process began on the 18th November 2012 and ended in December, and then there was I think a 2 weeks period where people inspected the register. The delay was caused, of course, by problems that were not of the making of the IEBC. Remember, because of the new law, we had to start from scratch. There were so many court cases challenging every aspect of the voter registration process. And yes, there was a problem with this procurement of BVR kits. So we ended up with a projection of 18 million, but against all odds, and I think IEBC deserves compliment in this, they were able to register 14.3 million voters. But the truth of the matter is that that is again where the first problem also began. And if you look at the tests for voter registration or the voter register around the world, there are usually 3. Number 1 is the voter register comprehensive. In other words, does it have maximum or geographical coverage? The second test is it an authoritative role? And then, of course, the final test is it accurate and verifiable? I'm not sure whether the register as presently constituted actually met the 3 tests. In terms of geographical spread, you only need to compare the registration process, especially look at Kakamega County, that is the second most populous, densely populous county, and Kiambu County, which is the 3rd, and then Bungoma County, which is 4th. So if you look at that, you can extrapolate that example almost across the Republic, and then the question of whether it met the geographical spread would fail. Number 2, was it an authoritative role? To the extent that IEBC itself was not very clear. And the register was qualified with reference to other materials like the Green Book, really brought in a lot of question whether what we had was an authoritative role. And then finally, was it accurate and verifiable? Remember, there was a total number of registered voters in December, which was different from February, and again different on March the 4th. Now, this voter registration exercise, which we've embarked on, actually gives us an opportunity to fix the problems that was there in the 2012 roll. It requires political parties. First of all, it's an obligation that Kenyans should understand, that you have absolutely no business complaining about bad governance or about your political party or your county, not just at the national level, about your county government not doing according to, not delivering when
or your MCA for that
or your MCA for that matter, when you can't go and register.
And vote for one.
Exactly. Number 2, unfortunately, in Brazil, they have compulsory voting. Yeah. Everybody is obligated to register and vote. We don't have that here. And secondly, the onus is also on political parties. I mean, especially for CORD, whose so-called strongholds did not turn out to register in the last election. It is not just the business of IEBC to get out the vote exercise. I mean, you look at every election in the U.S., including what is happening now, there is active infrastructure and organization that actually not only motivates people to register, but also turn out to vote. Now, this is not the business of IEBC. I think the media has tried their best. I see every now and then I see advertisement about or press coverage about the ongoing voter registration exercise. But the point is, the IEBC must done its bit, but Kenyan citizens must realize that is a civic duty.
The commentator Mutai Nguni coined what we call the tyranny of numbers. to the extent that Central Province and those other non-code areas had registered a lot of people, and they went out to vote.
Yes.
It looks like now is the opposite. When you look at the reports from the IEBC now, the more people are registering in Nyanda and code areas other than Central.
Yeah, because
it looks like Central is not motivated. They are not.
Exactly, and it brings in the whole issue of apathy. Our Kenyans, based on the previous elections, are pathetic to an extent that they don't see any reason for which to vote, or have they reached a situation where they think that their votes don't matter. But I think also, if the other way to look at it is that there was very robust and vigorous attempt by especially the Mount Kenya region and the entire Rift Valley to motivate people to register in 2012, and that probably explains why the so-called tyranny of numbers even came about. The onus is now on the opposition. If they want to really also register, then they must not only just rely on the IEBC, they must go out of their way to be able to motivate people to register. But IEBC has to do what, and I mean, granted, they've tried under the circumstances. You get serious commitments to try and get it right in the 2017 elections. And there was a strategic plan that was released. The elections operations plan is complete. But the onus is still on IEBC to not only ensure that the voter registration meets the 3 tests that I've mentioned, but that they also manages and maintains the voter register, because these are 2 different things. As we go to 2017, we should be able to know exactly the number of Kenyans who have registered nationally and in each county, but also the voter register must be very accurate and verifiable, and that is something that only the IEBC can do.
You said you also involve yourselves in the judiciary.
Yes.
To what extent and what level?
In 2012, I think May of 2012, the Chief Justice, recognizing the potential for disputes that was most likely going to arise in 2012, given the fact that the new constitution promulgated in 2010 had created so many new elective offices. Based on the various consultations that he had with different players, including ourselves, there was an understanding that the judiciary needed to be prepared to deal with potential cases of election disputes. And so the Chief Justice appointed this committee, and so ISA has indeed, with other organizations, been working with this committee. What we did specifically was, in the run-up to 2012, for example, we did induction process forums that involve all the magistrates and judges, High Court judges, and Court of Appeal judges, who actually ended up presiding over these petitions. And in the post-elect 2013, we've actually been actively engaged working with this committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ziambo. Now we take a break and go to Willis again, so that you can talk to the reporters in Kericho and Malindi.
All right, thank you very much, Mutegi. Of course, now we want to head over to Kericho, where the central by-election is underway, or rather voting in that election is underway. And I want to cross over to Francis Gashuri, who has been keeping tabs on the situation since morning, and we now join him again for an update on the same. Francis, maybe give us an update on what is happening right now.
Good morning, Willis Otondi Raburu. Say hi to Mutegi Njao as well. And indeed, 2 hours after the polling stations opened, the queue remains, as you can see. It has not dried up at any point. And this shows you the enthusiasm that the people of Kericho are exhibiting in terms of coming out to vote this morning. And the IEBC team hopes that this will be the trend until the voting closes at 5 p.m. and subsequently the vote counting begins. And all that one requires to do to participate in this electoral process is to have an original identity card or a passport, any of the documents that they used to register as voters, and also to specifically go to the polling centers that they registered as voters. And once they do that, they will meet officials here to guide them on how to go about it. There are 4 streams here, and each stream has an officer just trying to guide people, looking at their surname, and they have arranged these electoral exercises in such a way that the alphabetical order is what determines the exact polling center or the exact stream that one will be voting this morning. And this has been the trend. It rained heavily last night, Raburu, and people of Kericho braving the early morning cold just to come and participate in this exercise. And now let me join the queue and sample views from a few people to tell us basically what is their motivation to participate in this exercise, bearing in mind that there were heightened campaigns at the 21-day campaign period. We saw a lot of fanfare, a lot of political fireworks. And let's hear basically from the people of Kericho why they are turning up to vote this morning. Karibu sana, tuambie unaitwa nani na kwa nini wewe unajitokeza kupiga kura leo? Nitakusikia microphone.
Kwa majina naitwa Joseph Oyugi. Tunajitokeza kwa wingi ili tupige kura ndio tuweke kujua mtu mwenye atakayetusaidia. Ndio.
Shughuli unaiona aje kufikia sasa?
Shughuli inaendelea vizuri. Yeah.
Asante sana. Na wewe tuambie kaka unaitwa nani na kwa nini umejitokeza kwa nguvu leo asubuhi?
Mimi naitwa Jacob Owino. Nimetoka siku ya leo nichague seneta yangu nione vile atafanya kazi kama raia.
Umengoja kwa muda mrefu ama unaona process inaendelea vizuri?
Process inaendelea poa. Tuko salama sana. Security iko tight.
Asante sana. Nashukuru sana. Acha pia nizungumze na mzee mwingine hapa, tuambie unaitwa nani na ulianza kujipanga kuja kupiga kura saa ngapi na kufikia sasa unaona shughuli ikiendelea namna gani?
Asante. Kwa majina naitwa James Okoth. Shughuli inaendelea vizuri na naona tunasonga na watu nakuja mdogo mdogo tu. Naamini by saa moja tutakuwa tumeanza kujua matokeo. Asante.
Asante sana. Now not just the gentlemen, there are also ladies in the queue. Wacha tuzungumze na mama hapa. Mama, tuambie unaitwa nani na kwa nini wewe unajitokeza leo asubuhi kupiga kura?
Habari, jina langu naitwa Juliana Faiza. Nashukuru Mungu kwa kuwa ametujalia tufanye haki yetu. Kupiga kura ni haki yetu. Ingawa Mungu ndiye anachagua kiongozi na sisi pia tumepewa ruhusa ya kuchagua. Lakini Mungu ndiye atatusaidia kuchagua.
Asante sana. Nashukuru. Kirigo, let me Raburu, I'm even calling you Kirigo. Sorry, man. Let me sample some 2 more views before I hand it back to you. Let me talk to this gentleman. Tuambie unaitwa nani na umejipanga aje kupiga kura na labda kama umefika na vitu ambavyo vinahitajika kupiga kura kama wale watu wengine ambao naona wamepiga line hapa.
Mimi naitwa Otieno John na nimejitayarisha, niko na vitu vyote. Nataka nichague kiongozi seneta wangu.
Bas, one more and then we call it a wrap. Gentlemen, tell us unaitwa nani, umejipanga vipi kupiga kura na ulianza safari hii ya kuja kupiga kura saa ngapi?
Nimeingia tu sahihi. Kwanza tumefurahi sana kuona Gachuri. Nimeingia tu sahihi, nimejipanga vizuri kupiga kura. Niko kwa line. Natarajia kupiga kura kwa smart. Matokeo kwa sawa.
Nimejipanga vizuri, nimeanza asubuhi mapema, nimekuja kupiga kura. Na mimi nadhani uamuzi wangu imekuwa vizuri na ninaombea vizuri. Asante.
Asante sana. Raburu, basically that is the situation. There's also another gentleman here. No, he says he doesn't have a comment, man. It's okay. Basically that is the situation here, Raburu. We're hoping that we'll be able to see more and more people coming to participate in this exercise as hoped by the IEBC. The IEBC team is hoping that at least 70% of the registered voters here in Kericho County will be turning up to vote today, especially due to the political interest that the Kericho by-election has elicited, not only regionally but also nationally. You saw a lot of campaigns that are deemed to mirror the situation as it will be next year during the general election. So we anticipate a high turnout just as IEBC is hoping today. 290,000 registered voters in 623 polling centers. Those are the people that the IEBC team is waiting for to come and participate in this exercise. So far we've not had or witnessed any electoral irregularity, none has been reported so far. We are out and about trying to find out how the process has been going on. 2 hours plus since it kicked off. So far we have not registered any complaint, and we will be out and about to see how the situation will be going on. So far none of the six candidates has voted. We are informed that Kanu's Paul Sang will be voting in Bureti at about 9. We also told that Aaron Cheruiyot of Jubilee will be voting in Kabianga at about 10, and so we will be out there to get you the pictures of the candidates participating or voting, leading their voters in this exercise. That's all for now, Raburu. Back to you. Let's see how the situation unfolds. Asante, Mr. Otondi.
Thank you there, Francis Gashuri. At least at the end there you got my name right, so it is good. So that's Francis Gashuri who was talking to us from Kericho at the by-election. Voting is underway in the by-election there. They're going to the polls to choose their senator. As he said, we'll keep you up to date and give you the pictures and all the information that we have on our platforms, on our various platforms, including at Citizen TV Kenya. So I want to keep your tabs there. His handle is at Fshuri, so you can also follow some of the information or get some of the information from that particular portal. So now we want to hand it back over to Mutegi Njau as they continue with their discussion on the mini polls.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raburu. I didn't know you had some other middle name. You make to yourself. Now, Mr. Odhiambo. Yes, sir. You are talking about, before we went to the Kericho, you are talking about the judiciary committee that was formed in order to improve elections. Yeah. Let's summarize and tell us, during next year, what legislation is being prepared to make sure, or passed, to make sure that we are prepared that the mess that took place 2013 will not take place, that we may not necessarily have to have disputes. What preparations are being made to ensure that this election is smooth?
Well, let me first of all begin.
I know you are not in the electoral commission, but you're in that deal.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that if elections are managed well, then it will minimize the disputes that will arise as a result. And I think this is the connection that there is between election management and election dispute resolution. And therefore, it is incumbent upon the IEBC to ensure that, really, given the challenges that they themselves have acknowledged, and given the steps that they've taken to remedy that, including the strategic plan, including the elections operations plan, the onus is on the IEBC to get it right. If we get it right, what it means is we will have very few election disputes. There is no elections petition in South Africa because the IEC of South Africa manages those elections very well. There are very few elections petitions in Ghana, because the Electoral Commission of Ghana actually ensures that they do it well. But let me predict something, Mutegi. One, if you look at the current trend, it is possible that we will also have more disputes in 2017 than we had in 2013 elections. And the reason? The reason is simple. MCA's position and the gubernatorial positions and the presidential. In fact, the first two will attract more disputes than anybody else, any other elective office. Because, look, my local area, MCA, for example, goes about driving a Prado, a very sleek car. Now, the villagers can relate with this directly, that, everybody now wants to run for an MCA position, leaving parliamentary and senatorial seats. In fact, parliament and senate...
People want to be MCAs or governors.
Everybody wants to be MCAs or governors. Yeah. What it means is that we have so many MCAs position, and therefore, if there are going to be disputes of involving MCAs, then there are going to be very many, and so will be the gubernatorial elections. Now, specifically, what has been done within, or what are some of the proposals that have been put in place to fix election dispute resolution in Kenya? Number one is that the current law that is before Parliament, or at least discussions that have gone around this, are trying to, and in anticipation of the overwhelming number of disputes, they're trying to split the role that the IEBC has, the jurisdiction with regard to nomination disputes, to share this with the political parties dispute tribunal, so that the IEBC can be freed to do what it does best, and that is to manage elections. And don't forget, Parliament in 2013 passed the Election Campaign Finance Act and put responsibility of managing and implementing this act on the IEBC. What it means is that IEBC will have more responsibilities than they did in 2013. So strengthen political parties to deal with their own internal disputes first. And then after that, empower the political parties dispute tribunal to deal with as many pre-election disputes as possible, and then IEBC can only then deal with the disputes arising from submission of the certificates. Secondly, there is a proposal in the judiciary that the time for presidential petitions was too short. Part of the reasons why the Supreme Court could not deal adequately with this with the presidential petition in terms of admitting other evidence that were filed. Now, so there is a proposal to extend the number of days from 14 days as it presently is to 30 days to give the Supreme Court more time to be able then to deal with this dispute. So, and of course the question that has always been is that is the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to handle petitions arising from other elective offices misplaced. The question is, shouldn't we just have appeals to every other elective office terminating at the Court of Appeal? So these are some of the discussions that are actually being we are having with a view to strengthening election dispute regime in Kenya.
What about, I know you are not there, but the stories you are getting is that the Electoral Commission, IEBC, is underfunded. And that was the problem even last time because of procurement, because of corruption. You know, the equipment that was bought in Canada or France, wherever. That preparedness of infrastructure. Do you think the Electoral Commission, and some of that was also problem because of corruption, some people wanted to procure. And, do you think the Electoral Commission will be ready in terms of infrastructure to conduct free and fair elections?
Well, I want to say this with all sincerity that comes with it. And the truth of the matter is that IEBC prepares the budget, and Parliament and the Executive must acknowledge the fact that IEBC is an autonomous, independent body. Secondly, elections all over the world are very expensive. And so if you look at the new constitution and the fact that Article 38 of the constitution has actually constitutionalized the political rights, which includes voter registration, which includes conducting free and fair elections, among other things. What it means is Parliament should give IEBC the money that according to what their budgetary requirements are. Now, if you withhold money, which is really the case, I think they requested for 7 billion for voter registration, they were given 3 billion. Unfortunately, that undermines the democratic process. The last election, the 2014 elections in South Africa, the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa used, the budget was 40 billion rand between the 5-year period. Now that's a budget larger than Lesotho, the GDP of Lesotho and Swaziland. And it's much higher than what the IEBC has requested for this phase. The question is, we gave the IEBC administrative independence, but did the IEBC Act and the Constitution give them financial independence? And the constant reliance on the state and Parliament to vote on their appropriation actually undermines the independence of the electoral IEBC insofar as conducting its business is concerned. Now, so IEBC ideally should get the budget as they require. Now, the onus is on IEBC to manage this budget once Parliament has given it. In fact, I've in other forums even indicated that IEBC can legitimately take the Parliament to court or the government for not giving it what it wants, given the fact that political rights is actually a fundamental right. They can actually go to court to challenge that. But issues of corruption, issues of vested interest in procurement, right now I hold the view that we need to procure new electronic verification identification devices, EVIDs, to be able to deal with the problems of ballot stuffing that we witnessed in 2013. It's up to IEBC to ensure that the money that they get.
Was there any ballot stuffing in 2030?
Well, 100% turnout in Luo Nyanza, Central Province and Rift Valley Province, even the most contented citizenry don't vote like that. The only way to deal with that issue, especially Luo Nyanza, Mount Kenya region and Rift Valley, is to have some form of verification. Nigeria used to have this problem. Now, the last election that Nigeria had, they embarked on the most elaborate verification process before voting. In other words, people could come, the first half of the day, from morning to noon, was just verification. Are you registered? Can the machine pick and confirm that you are registered to vote in this polling station? Then they began voting from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. The first half of the day was to verify, the second half of the day was to vote. And so in Kenya, I still hold the view that some form of excellent verification process and the mechanism is required to deal with cases of 100% turnout. There's no place on earth that has, except Uganda, I'm told, 28 polling stations posted 100% turnout, and they all voted for Museveni.
Thank you very much, Bona Odhiambo.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us. Very, very educative kind of discussion. We will now go to the band that is singing for us.